You're listening to the L&M Radio Network and WCET 101.7 Columbia Talk.
Well, we need to know a couple of things. Number one, we need to know how the world's premier law enforcement agency managed to lose 5 months worth of text. And what's also troubling is in the text we do have, they're discussing how to avoid text being captured and secured. So what's missing is important, but also what's there is important. It is manifest bias, not just against Trump, but against his kids, against his business interests. There's a text where they hope the Trump hotel fails. That is a level of bias that you rarely see and you never see from law enforcement officers. What's also troubling to me is this text that Johnny Ratcliffe found last night about this secret society. Now, I have no clue what that means because that was not the phraseology I used, but it's the day after the election, and it's the same two people that we're discussing a little bit later in the text, the damage they had done with the Clinton investigation and how they could, quote, fix it and make it right.
What's out there? Today is Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. I'm Papa Bear, and this is What's Out There. A lot. You know, it seems as though every time I get done here with my show, on Thursday, we get all kinds of news that come out all at once. And it's like, geez, I missed it, I missed this, I missed that, I missed this. There's so much going on. Anyway, let's go ahead and pick it up to kind of, I don't know, stuff's going on here. John McCain, apparently, John McCain's been battling a brain tumor since they diagnosed him with it last year. And he's 81, and apparently he's went ahead and decided to make funeral plans. And I kind of wondered, you know, I'm listening, John McCain is making funeral plans, and there's only one guest who is not invited or was specified that not go there, and that would be Donald J. Trump. I don't get it. This is, I guess I don't need to, right? But when they started talking about this funeral, the first thing I asked myself is, gee, when and where is it going to be? I mean, maybe Trump has some other plans for that day. But then again, I mean, even if he doesn't, he can celebrate at home. I mean, I will. That's pretty much the way it goes. And, of course, we know how McCain was. He had they called him Songbird. He's got a rough past in Hanoi and all. And, of course, you know, nobody's for war. They called him a war traitor. And you've got both sides of the coin. But the thing is, a lot of people take their perspectives from both sides of the coin, which is like, if you're anti-war, you can't be anti-Jane Fonda, you know, because Jane Fonda was anti-war too. That's pretty much what that was about. So, you know, you got to be careful what side of the fence you're going to ride on. The NRA, they have a new president, and his name is Oliver North, retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, the central figure in the Iran-Contra affair in the 1980s, has been named the president of the NRA. The NRA's board of directors chose North to be the organization's president Monday morning after the NRA president Pete Brownell decided not to seek a second term. So this is the most exciting news for our members since Charlton Heston became president of our association, NRA Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre said. Oliver North is a legendary warrior for American freedom, a gifted communicator and skilled leader. In these times, I can think of no one better suited to serve as our president. Well, I'm sure everybody has their opinions on Oliver North. He had his, the Iran-Contra deal, of course, arms for hostages, right? And that went back into the Reagan times, and of course Fox News likes to have him on every now and then as a consultant. But I don't know. I think a lot of these guys, they're probably only put in a term or two anyway before they're gone. And John Kerry said, yes, I negotiated with Iran behind Trump's back. Not a problem at all. He just piped right up. He says, I think every American would want every voice possible urging Iran to remain in compliance with a nuclear agreement that prevented a war. Secretary Kerry stays in touch with his former counterparts around the world, just like every previous Secretary of State. Like America's closest allies, he believes it is important that the nuclear agreement, which took years to negotiate, remain effective as countries focus on stability in the region. And that's the thing. I mean, when you sell these people 20% of the uranium that you produce, and they say, well, we don't have any nefarious reasons for having this stuff, but it's just going to be here. What are we doing? What kind of message are we sending? Are we sending the message, yep, they're going to go ahead and they're going to build a nuclear weapon and they're going to use it? I mean, they haven't. They've been accused of it since, 1992? But they haven't. They haven't been an aggressor country at all. So, why all the uproar and the big deal with Iran? But the thing is that you give them the materials to do something to, send it back at us to make it look like we've been attacked from Iran with nuclear weapons. And then, oh geez, Iran attacked us with nuclear weapons, so now we're going to have to attack them back. This is a false flag if I ever saw one. This is preparation for a false flag. How much of the country can we destroy? And never mind the people. We don't care about the people. You're nobody. I mean, right now your tax revenue, you're a number. You're a numbered slave. That's it. Okay. How many of you can we wipe out? So it makes it easier for us to control after the fallout is dissipated. How's that going to go? Iran did it, and then all of a sudden there's you see, this is the problem I have with making deals like this covertly. There's a lot of covert stuff going on in the government, and it's, geoengineering is another thing, okay? Remember, for the longest time, you got these guys wearing their tinfoil hats, and they're saying, oh, they're spraying chemtrails, well, chemtrails, I guess, isn't the right term. Now you have to use geoengineering, because otherwise you're a kook. You have to use the right word. Kind of reminds me of court. But anyway, geoengineering is finally going mainstream as the U.S. House Subcommittee on Environment and Subcommittee on Energy hearing on Wednesday held the first House hearing about the science that until now has generally been considered a conspiracy theory and relegated to the fringes of society by the Praetorian Guard mainstream media, controlled by the ruling power elite oligarchy. I like the way they the way they word this stuff. This is the freedomthoughtproject.com is where I source this. The controversial subject of climate engineering or weather modification, which is popularized and oversimplified with the term chemtrails, is stepping from the shadows and into the light of public scrutiny for the first time. The congressional hearing titled Geoengineering, Innovation, Research, and Technology was attended by members of the House committees as well as representatives of think tanks, academics, and researchers, scientists, to discover the future of geoengineering research. Participants in Wednesday's hearing include full committee Chairman Lamar Smith, Republican of Texas, Environment Subcommittee Chairman Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona, and Energy Subcommittee Chairman Randy Weber, Republican of Texas. Testimony was presented by Dr. Phil Rash, Chief Scientist for Climate Science, Laboratory Fellow, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, Dr. Joseph Marcoux, Director of, I'm going to butcher these names, sorry, the Director of Climate Policy at Niskanen Center, Dr. Douglas McMartin, Senior Research Associate, Cornell University, and Mrs. Kelly Wanzer, Principal Director, Marine Cloud Brightening Project, Joint Institute for the Study of Atmosphere and Ocean, University of Washington. So interestingly, chemtrails have been a long talk of conspiracy theories with massive amounts of disinformation being posted all over the internet, including fake studies and photos. However, several real studies, supposedly, show that some seeding or geoengineering may have already taken place, indicating that secret projects to test the science have likely already taken place. A study published in the International Journal Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health suggests that geoengineering has already begun, and that at least one substance being used is a toxic byproduct of coal burning called coal fly ash. This is what they say. The widespread, intentional, and increasingly frequent chemical emplacement in the troposphere has gone unidentified and unremarked in this scientific literature for years. The author presents evidence that toxic coal combustion fly ash is the most likely aerosol particulate sprayed by tanker jets for geoengineering, weather modification, and climate modification purposes, and describes some of the multifold consequences on the public health. So the hearings largely operated as a coming out party, okay? It's an opportunity for them to attempt to solicit funding, from the Trump administration. We got to get paid for doing this, so I guess we're going to have to open up the folders and show you what we've been doing, right? Well, the term geoengineering describes it's an array of technologies that aim through large-scale and deliberate modifications of the Earth's energy balance to reduce temperatures and counteract anthropogenic climate change. Most of these technologies are at the conceptual and research stages, and their effectiveness at reducing global temperatures has yet to be proven. Moreover, very few studies have been published that document the cost, environmental effects, socio-political impacts, and legal implications of geoengineering. If geoengineering technologies were to be deployed, they are expected to have the potential to cause significant transboundary effects. And that is correct, because if you spray them over one state, they're going to float right over another. It's just the way it goes. You can ban them in one county in California, but if they spray them in the next county, they're going to float right in. You're not going to get away from it. It's not going to happen. See, the whole problem is that we've got a pole shift going on. The North and South poles have both moved. The ice sheet on the South Pole has moved. It's receding on one side and gaining on the other. And, of course, the North Pole is walking. A lot of that is melted in the summertime. It just the way it happens to be because we're that close. And it's because the pole shifting is creating different winds now. The winds are different. All the climate is going to be different. And it's not because of something we do here on the Earth. I mean, unless we can change that magnetic fluctuation, or maybe it's something about the oil that's in the ground. Maybe it's carrying a magnetic force that keeps this place in balance, okay? And it's because of that magnetic liquid that keeps the Earth going, or provides a magnetosphere for the outside, because Mars, from what I understand, used to have a magnetosphere and now doesn't. And since it doesn't, now it gets bombarded with things. So, all the debris from the outside atmosphere comes through and hits right directly to the planet. We are fortunate to have a magnetosphere that protects us from all that sun coming from the sun's rays. Coronal mass ejections, all the wind, the solar wind, which we go through all the time here. Mueller. Gotta like this one. Mueller request denied. Troll farm delay next. Gotta like this one. This is from ConservativeDailyPost.com. Last week, Robert Mueller's investigation suffered a major loss in a court during its case concerning Paul Manafort and his alleged violations of the law. However, in a shocking turn of events, a second judge has handed Mueller's special investigation a loss, this time in the case against Russian agents. On Friday, a federal judge rejected a request from Mueller's special counsel to delay a hearing in the criminal case against 3 Russian companies and 13 Russian citizens accused of sowing discord in the country in advance of the 2016 election. This means the trial against the alleged troll farm will continue speedily rather than being arbitrarily slowed by an unprepared or ill-equipped prosecution team, leading many people to believe that the witch hunt is unraveling. The order released on Saturday evening offered no explanation and simply denied the prosecutor's request to put off the Wednesday arraignment for one of the three Russian businesses in the case, Concord Management and Consulting. U.S. District Court Judge Dabney Friedrich, appointed by President Donald Trump, made the decision. It's a strange filing and an interesting denial of a simple request in a case that is filled with them. When U.S. Special Investigation filed charges against the defendants in the case, 13 people and 3 businesses, they fully expected that they would all ignore the criminal proceedings in the United States. After all, Russia is not a country likely to extradite its citizens to face prosecution at the hands of a political show trial, right? Especially not one in the U.S. But the internal agency, Concord Management, and Concord Catering were considered unlikely to ever send a representative, let alone an executive, to face a criminal investigation. But last month, a pair of Washington area lawyers notified the court they'll be representing Concord Management's interest in the case, and they'll be participating in the legal proceedings. You gotta like this, huh? At the time, legal experts and observers suggested that the reason Concord Management sent representatives was to force the Mueller investigation to provide information on what sort of evidence it has, or perhaps even force the prosecutors into dismissing the charges rather than reveal allegedly sensitive information that could impact other cases. This certainly seems like what's happened, given the attorney's representation. Concord Management have filed multiple discovery requests, and that, according to the special investigation, they repeatedly made demands for non-public information. So these attorneys are to provide an effective defense for Concord, and it's likely they'll need that non-public information one way or another. They can't defend themselves against claims they don't know that are being made. After all, if they can't confront evidence without having the evidence, right? Concord's attorneys, here we go, I'm going to butcher these again, Eric Dubelier and Kate Cycley, anyway, are right to make their discovery requests, though doing so might force the prosecution to reveal hidden evidence in this particular case. See, this is all going to come apart. This is all going to come apart. Oh, the Ruskies aren't going to send anybody over here. Pfft, that's the last thing we got to worry about, hey, that'll never happen. And then, okay, here we go, right? And now you've got problems with the Department of Justice. Good old Sam Sessions, while I recused myself from all the stuff that had to do with Clinton, well, there have been few greater disappointments with the Trump administration than what Jeff Sessions is doing. Okay. Anyway, the former U.S. Senator of Alabama has spent decades building his credibility as a rock-ribbed conservative, a moral man, and a defender of laws. But he threw it away when he nearly instantly recused himself from anything related to Russia, soon after he assumed the office. Since then, the corrupt Justice Department, led by slimy operative Rod Rosenstein, has appointed a law-breaking fanatic in the form of Robert Bob Mueller to assemble his own personal Gestapo to dislodge President Trump from office. Sessions has also presided over a politicized sewer that is rife with misconduct and thick with traitors, many of whom are Obama regime embeds, who have made up a formidable fifth column within the nation's top law enforcement institutions. Rosenstein continues to defy Congress to provide documents related to the Clinton server investigation cover-up and spits in the face of legitimate oversight. But, as the old Greek proverb goes, a fish rots from the head down, and that head belongs to the salt, that belongs to Sessions right there. He's asleep. He's a watchdog. He's asleep in the doghouse. Well, Devin Nunes, on the House Intelligence Committee chairman, he said one of the only people working to get to the bottom of things is about to put a cattle prod to Sessions in the form of holding him in contempt of Congress. And it could happen this week. He put in a tweet, or Sarah Carter put in a tweet, that DOJ battles once again or Devin Nunes battles the DOJ once again. DOJ says disclosure of requested classified information to Congress is dangerous. Curious what it is. And, House Intelligence Committee Devin Nunes revealed Sunday that Congress will hold Department of Justice Attorney General Jeff Sessions in contempt for refusing to turn over classified information the committee has requested, he stated in a phone interview with Fox and Friends. The Department of Justice also shot back on Sunday, released the letter sent to Nunes on May 3rd, which addressed the classified information Nunes had requested. It appears from the letter, Nunes had asked for information on a specific individual, not yet named and considered by the DOJ to be a very valuable person for a counterintelligence operation. Disclosure of responsive information to such requests can risk severe consequences, including potential loss of human lives, damage to relationships with valued international partners, compromise of ongoing criminal investigations, and interference with intelligence activities, stated the May 3rd letter from Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd. But Nunes isn't buying it. He warned Sessions that ignoring deadlines requested by Congress will result in contempt. Nunes also referred to comments lambasting Special Counsel Robert Mueller by U.S. Judge District T.S. Ellis III, who said in a Virginia federal court Friday, "We don't want anyone in this country with unfettered power. It's likely you're going to persuade me the special prosecutor has power to do anything he or she wants. The American people feel pretty strongly that no one has unfettered power." Nunes noted that 2 weeks ago the committee sent a classified letter to Sessions, and per usual it was ignored. Last week we sent a subpoena, and we got a letter stating that they're not going to comply with our subpoena on very important information that we need. The only thing left that we can do is to move quickly to hold the Attorney General of the United States in contempt, and that's what I'm going to press for this week. So there you go. Mr. Sessions, pull your stuff together because it's going to come down. Also, the big law firm behind the Russian trolls indicted in the Mueller probe. Anyway, if you've been following along with the legal twists and turns of the investigation, you'll know that one of the more interesting aspects was the indictment of the 13 Russian citizens and 3 Russian businesses on crimes related to the interference of the 2016 presidential election. Conventional wisdom has been generally that none of these entities would ever make an appearance otherwise acknowledge the proceedings, but of course one of the Russian businesses, Concord Management, has tapped a big law firm to represent him in court, which is good. I'd like to see that happen. This from WNMD, or World News Daily. It's been confirmed that there was election interference by the Obama team. It's been confirmed now. The American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ, has revealed it has uncovered documents showing the Obama State Department even misled Congress about U.S. tax money being used to try to manipulate the results of an election in Israel, America's strongest ally in the Middle East. The organization confirmed that through its Freedom of Information Act case involving the U.S. State Department's support for One Voice Israel and One Voice Palestine, it obtained revealing details. While the United States regularly issues grants to international organizations that provide services such as humanitarian relief, educational opportunities, and even opportunities and activities aimed at encouraging democratic voter participation, it turns out that One Voice organizations went well beyond such measures and actively campaigned against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the 2015 elections, using resources established and developed with grant funds from the Obama State Department, the ACLJ has reported. So, what they found was one of the senior advisors to One Voice Palestine was none other than the son of Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, something the Obama administration clearly knew since the documents were in his possession. In short, U.S. taxpayer funds were distributed by the Obama State Department to two sister organizations with clear political goals of undermining, indeed unseating, the sitting prime minister of a U.S. ally. Imagine, huh? Lawmakers, including Senator Ted Cruz and Representative Lee Zeldin, had concerns and wrote to the Obama administration about them. The American Center for Law and Justice, or ACLJ, said the records it has obtained in the FOIA case, or the FOIA request, Freedom of Information, show the government then claimed to the legislators there is absolutely no basis to claims that the Department of State has funded efforts to influence the current Israeli election campaign. This is what we do. We overthrow governments. We influence elections. This is the American way, okay? This is what we do. We've always done that. And I don't know why we can't figure it out yet. I mean, we did the same thing in North Korea. North Korea was what? They actually, if you look at it, if you look at what was reported, it was run by the what they call clowns, or CIA. Okay, that's who ran that. And it wouldn't surprise me that because we have all these problems, the same problems we've been having with Iran, that Iran is being used as the same type of puppet. That's what kind of gets me. So, I mean, either way, right? Anyway, you're listening to the L&M Radio Network and 101.7 WCET Columbia Talk. I'm Papa Bear, and we'll be right back.
There are days that the red pill is bitter in my stomach, but I can't get it back out. I think because I have to. I speak because I have no choice. I walk through this dark age we're in with open eyes. Listen to Open Eyes on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. And together, maybe we won't stumble and fall.
The L&M Radio Network offers a chat room for you, the listener, to connect with others whom are interested in the topics and guests that the L&M Radio Network brings to you. During the live shows, the hosts will even visit the chat room and chat with you, the listener. Click on the big red Chat and Listen button at the top of the website and join us. No subscription is needed at either lnmradionetwork.com or latenightinthemidlands.com.
Why subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show, come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands, bringing the truth back to talk radio.
Do you need toner for your Epson, Hewlett-Packard, Canon, Brother, Apple, or Sharp printers? Look no further than Laser Technologies. In business for over 20 years, they offer the lowest prices on toner on the web. They can also repair your laser printers and toners fast and easy. Call their expert staff today at 561-792-9600 or email us at service@laser-technologies.com for all your toner needs. All toner is shipped nationwide. Why wait? Get the lowest prices on on toner. Call or email us today.
There is a better radio show, beyond that which is known to the people. It is a radio show more informative than others, and as timeless as infinity. It is the equilibrium between light and dark, between the sheeple and the paranormal, and it is heard at the base of man's ignorance and at the summit of his knowledge. This is the radio show of imagination, a show we call The Secret Teachings.
Music by Ben Sound at bensound.com. A little different tune today, had to switch it up a little. But anyway, yes, we get our music from Ben Sound, bensound.com. Also, this is Late Night in the Midlands at latenightinthemidlands.com, lnmradionetwork.com, and 101.7 WCET Columbia Talk. You'll find us on YouTube, YouTube, listen to me. You'll find us on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, the Paranormal Radio app, as well as TalkStream Live. And if you miss a live broadcast, it'll be replayed 12 hours after the live airing time on the L&M Radio Network. We also archive our shows here at YouTube, username What's Out There, and all the daily shows are uploaded right after they're done. Let's see. I've got to put out a little disclaimer here. I want to let everybody know that the views expressed by me, the host of this show, are not necessarily shared by those of the network, its hosts, or its network owner, or any of its advertisers. They are solely my views and my opinions are expressed here. Other than that, it's just news, what we read. I usually source the news and pretty much tell you what's out there. And that's pretty much that. I think that's in a nutshell. Anyway, back to the news. Eric Schneiderman, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman of New York, has resigned after being accused of abuse by multiple women in a bombshell new report on Monday. In the last several hours, serious allegations, which I strongly contest, have been made against me, he said in a statement. While these allegations are unrelated to my professional conduct or the operations of the office, they will effectively prevent me from leading the office's work at this critical time. I therefore resign my office, effective as of the close of business on May 8th, 2018. That's today. The resignation comes after calls from fellow Democrats, Governor Andrew Cuomo, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and others. They asked for him to step aside. Just hours earlier, New York Magazine released a story about his abusive behavior. Apparently, the man likes to abuse, or liked to abuse his wife, and he would say, "Tell me you're my brown slave." And, anyway. Call me master, right? These people I don't get it, and they get into government. And I think the only reason why they hold high places is because somebody's got something over somebody's neck. It's always something. Anyway, NSA continues to abuse Americans by intercepting their phone calls. This is from the RonPaulInstitute.org. One of the few positive things in the ill-named USA Freedom Act, enacted in 2015 after the Snowden revelations on NSA domestic spying, is that it required the Director of National Intelligence to regularly report on its domestic surveillance activities. On Friday, the latest report was released on just how much our government is spying on us. The news is not good at all if you value your freedom over tyranny. According to the annual report named the Statistical Transparency Report regarding use of national security authorities, the U.S. government intercepted and stored information from more than half a billion of our telephone calls and text messages in 2017. That's a 300% increase from 2016. All of these intercepts were legal under the FISA Act, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is ironic because FISA was enacted to curtail the Nixon-era abuse of surveillance on American citizens. Has the U.S. government intercepted your phone calls and or text messages? You don't know, which is why the surveillance state is so evil. Instead of assuming your privacy is protected by the U.S. Constitution, you must assume that the U.S. government is listening in to your communications all the time. The difference between these is the difference between freedom and tyranny. The ultimate triumph of totalitarian states was not to push citizens for opposing its tyranny, but to successfully cause them to censor themselves before even expressing subversive thoughts. We can't celebrate our freedom and call ourselves an exceptional nation as long as we're under control of the kind of surveillance that would turn the East German Stasi green with envy. I mean, we know the East German secret police relied on millions of informants eager to integrate themselves with their totalitarian rulers by reporting on their friends, neighbors, or even relatives. It was a messy system, but it served the purpose of preventing any unwelcome political views from taking hold. No one was allowed to criticize the politics of the government without facing reprisals. Sadly, this is where we're headed. Our advanced technological age provides for surveillance that even the most enthusiastic East German intelligence operative could not have dreamed of. Wow. Unreal. No longer does the government need to rely on nosy neighbors as informants. The NSA has cut out the middleman, intercepting our communications, our very thoughts, right at the source. No one who calls himself an American patriot can be happy about this development. Seriously. Not even the president is safe from the surveillance state that he presides over. Remember, they wiretapped the White House. They wiretapped Trump Plaza. I mean, everything was wiretapped. Finally, he has some secure communications, but believe me, that's tough. They want to have their thumb on him all the time. Anyway, not even the president is safe from the surveillance. According to a news report last week, federal investigators monitored the phone lines of President Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, even when he was speaking to his client, the president. An all-powerful state that intercepts its citizens' communications and stores them indefinitely to use them against them in the future does not deserve to be called the leader of the free world. It's more the high-tech equivalent of third world despotism, where we all exist. We're all subject to the whim of those currently in political power. And that's basically the way we need to retrain ourselves. We really need to retrain. We need to sit back and read the Constitution and see what it's all about and think about it. This is the law of the land. All right? You need to know what your rights are and which rights are protected. The government works for you. You don't work for the government. Those are protections, okay? See, that's the thing. We have a foreign government services contractor providing government services to the people. You don't fall into their jurisdiction unless you work for them. Okay? Just want to make sure that we got that straight. Anyway, off on a different subject, people keep talking about, hey, if the economy is so good, why are gas prices so high? I watch the prices go up, 50 cents here, Well, if you're wondering why, it's because of the oil production in Venezuela. All right? And that's the Saudi Arabia of the Americas, basically. Continuing its huge tar sands deposits, Venezuela has more crude oil than any other country in the world. Nevertheless, oil output in that failed socialist state has fallen to its lowest in nearly 30 years, largely because of mismanagement and corruption. The production collapse there coincides with an announcement by Saudi Arabia and Russia of coordinated efforts to bolster world oil prices, which have climbed more than 60% since last summer, reaching a 3-year high. U.S. consumers are among the biggest losers because we use more oil than any other place on the planet. If domestic gas prices rise by $1 a gallon, the economic pains from last year's Tax Cut and Jobs Act will be wiped out completely, and hurt most by such a price spike, of course, are low income, right? I got a tickle in my throat. The ones hit most of the low-income households who spend proportionally more of their budgets on fuel for transportation. And I live in the state of Maine. It's 10 miles to anything here. All right, that's just the way Maine is. Everything is spread out. If you want a good job, you work in Portland. Well, how far is it to Portland? From where I am here, it's 60 miles one way. Oh, well, maybe you can go to Augusta. You can work in the capital or up there, work for the people that, the government services providers, right? You can go work for them up in Augusta. Well, that's 50 miles. Just roughly 6 to 1/2 does the other, basically, except one you got to pay a toll to get to. And it's all back road all the way. So if you're talking 50 miles one way to have a half-decent paying job, then you're talking a lot of money. And then when you've got little towns around here like Lewiston and Auburn, with a population combined of 40,000, 50,000 maximum, and it's a commuter town. Both of them, they're commuter towns. There's nothing going on there. The only thing you might find there is a auto repair business, or, of course, your places to buy stuff. But it's not like it is in Portland. The higher the populations are, the more the lower the prices, because the more people are buying. It's numbers. It's all a numbers game. But anyway, that's the basic deal there. They're raising the prices in Saudi Arabia. Venezuela's cut back on their production, and you'd think that maybe we could use more of our own. I don't know. Here's another one. This is from a website called Against Crony Capitalism. A funny thing happened on the way to impeaching Donald Trump. America started to wake up. It's all coming to light now. Sorry, Soros. George Soros. Anyway, George Soros, big-time billionaire, donors to the Democratic Party, and, of course, David Brock, the propaganda mercenary, they met together to plan a kick Donald Trump's butt in the week of Clinton's loss, right? Well, this was back in 2017. But that was a strategy back in 2017. But George Soros still has a lot of money that he's put into different groups that sound like humanitarian operations, but they're not. They're out there on the streets. He is funding Antifa, and most of your Black Lives Matter, he funds them. All of your social equality groups, you might say. Yeah. Anyway, that's Illinois. I get a kick out of Illinois. They passed this legislation in 2013 requiring police to get a warrant before using drones for surveillance purposes, right? Well, they've decided they're going to go ahead and do it again. Legislation reportedly backed by Rahm Emanuel would eliminate that restriction and allow the government to monitor large gatherings, rallies, and protests using drones. The proposal, SB 2562 by State Senator Martin Sandoval, would allow Illinois police departments to use drones for any, quote, legitimate law enforcement purpose, unquote. He said, I don't want Chicago to be the next Las Vegas-style outdoor terrorist attack, but I also don't want drones to be surveilling everyone's every move. This legislation clearly is limited to drone usage for providing safety. Okay, now, the very first sentence he said there, let me repeat this. right after I cough. I don't want Chicago to be the next Las Vegas-style outdoor terrorist attack, is what he said. And the first thing that came to mind is, wait a minute, it's a good thing the press doesn't report on what happens in Chicago, because you'd find that type of shooting happens there almost every weekend. This is crazy. And now they want to use drones to monitor these people when they, when they assemble. Isn't that somewhere in the First Amendment, the right to assembly, the right to assemble? Well, now they want to, in case you're up to something nefarious, in case you get together and you're conspiring, right? Who's the conspiracy theorist now? Kind of throws a shoe on the other foot. It's really, really, really gets to me about this. Vaccines. Here's something I really need to touch on, because people seem to forget history. Back in the day, 1915, Johnny Gruelle created a Raggedy Ann doll. U.S. patent D47789. He was an American writer, cartoonist, storyteller, and illustrator who worked for a popular magazine at the time called Physical Culture. Many are unaware that Gruelle's famous Raggedy Ann storybooks and illustrations were based, in large part, on Marcella's childhood adventures. What happened was, not long after the creation of the Raggedy Ann, Gruelle's only child and 13-year-old daughter, Marcella, died a painful death after receiving a routine smallpox vaccination at school, which was given without parental consent. Reports indicate that after the initial inoculation Marcella had, she lost her appetite and became feverish and fatigued. Amazingly, more inoculations were given despite her negative reaction from the first jab. Predictably, Marcella's health continued to decline to the point where she lost all muscle control, becoming listless and lifeless like a rag doll. While all this was going on at school, her parents knew nothing about it and had never ever given consent for any vaccinations. Sadly, Marcella died a slow and agonizing death. The Gruelles were convinced beyond any doubt that the vaccination was the culprit behind the death of their only child, even though school authorities and vaccination proponents insisted Marcella had died from a pre-existing heart defect. But ultimately, 7 leading physicians are called upon to opine about the cause of her death. 6 consented it's the result of the vaccine-induced poisoning and called it malpractice. The 7th, being the head of the school board and a supporter of vaccination, declined to comment. Okay? You know where this is going. This was a long time ago. Nothing has changed. If you think technology has done things to make things better for you in the vaccination thing, forget it. There is still a lot of thimerosal, which is a mercury derivative, which kills brain cells. It would kill brain cells. Monetary systems. Here's something that hit me kind of hard. Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency. Apparently, these migrants that are coming over have they're a part of a program that involves cryptocurrency and retinal scanning. So what they do is they use retinal scanning to access their cryptocurrency. How many are doing that? How many are not doing it? How many are doing it? How many are getting their cryptocurrency plus living off the welfare of the tax money that the American people pay? And this is how they're paying for stuff, through retinal scanning. No card. You don't need a card. You don't have to carry anything with you. It's right in your eyes, right? Unbelievable. AP tries to cover up Clinton links to sex cult. Remember that? NXIVM? NXIVM? Right? Well, the Associated Press is running a full court press to block any reporting on the associations between Bill and Hillary Clinton and NXIVM, the sex cult that sees its leaders Keith Raniere and Allison Mack standing trial for sex trafficking. Associated Press, they're blocking it. These are the press people, AP. I'm reading this from Big League Politics. At a recent court hearing, former Smallville star Allison Mack avoided eye contact with fellow defendant Keith Raniere, the manipulative cult leader who allegedly had Mack and other women under his spell during his years of unencumbered alleged sex crimes. Mack's possible plea deal could lead to incarceration for Raniere, who is being held without bail, and could collapse the entire house of cards around NXIVM that involves the Clintons and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Oh, and many others, too. We didn't mention Schiff, did we? The AP is trying to discredit the well-documented NXIVM Clinton axis by focusing on just one internet story about the case from a site that's not well known. This is a common tactic by the mainstream media, pretending that an entire controversy was caused by one blog post, then trying to smear everyone who reports on the controversy because that one blog post was wrong. Now, how interesting. Isn't it something about this one blog post or one movie, huh? An isolated incident that nobody's ever heard of that for some reason went viral, right? Well, that virus never made it. That virus never made it over here. Here's how the AP reprinted. Yeah. Here's how the AP, reprinted by the New York Daily News, tries to whitewash the Clinton element of this scandal. The article on NY Evening News and other sites declares that Mack confessed that she sold children to the Rothschilds and Clintons during her time in the child sex cult. The alleged Clinton connection in the story is based on something that isn't true. It claims that Seagram's liquor fortune heiress Claire and Sarah Bronfman, who are followers of Raniere, are members of Bill Clinton's foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, which requires a $15,000 membership fee. A spokesman for the foundation tells the Associated Press they haven't donated any money or made a required commitment to action to the Global Initiative. That one random article, just that one aside, the sex cult's Clinton links are actually everywhere, not to mention links to the New York senator and prospective presidential candidate Kirsten Gillibrand, whose father worked for the depraved cult. The cult actually hacked Hillary Clinton's emails, adding them to the long list of nefarious organizations that accessed Clinton's private communications during her scandal-plagued public service career. Hey, that's all like as of recently, huh? As of late. Oh goodness, I think I've said enough. Anyway, today is May. Today's May 8th. Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. I'm Papa Bear. Thank you for listening. That, my friends, is what's out there.
Well, we need to know a couple of things. Number one, we need to know how the world's premier law enforcement agency managed to lose 5 months' worth of text. And what's also troubling is in the text we do have, they're discussing how to avoid text being captured and secured. So what's missing is important, but also what's there is important. It is manifest bias, not just against Trump, but against his kids, against his business interests. There's a text where they hope the Trump hotel fails. That is a level of bias that you rarely see and you never see from law enforcement officers. What's also troubling to me is this text that Johnny Ratcliffe found last night about this secret society. Now, I have no clue what that means because that was not the phraseology I used, but it's the day after the election. And it's the same two people that we're discussing a little bit later in the text, the damage they had done with the Clinton investigation and how they could, quote, fix it and make it right.
What's out there? listening to the L&M Radio Network and WCET 101.7 Columbia Talk.